Did you see any of Tony Khan's Twitter meltdown last week?
I was made aware of it by Chris Moose, the big ugly guy, and yeah, I think that this, his honeymoon is now worn out. In wrestling, if you're going to go out, successful bookers, if you're going to be like someone like a Dusty Rhodes, booking while you're still in ring, and we fans and those of us in the business can go back and parse the good and the bad of that. There was both, like in most of life, but if you're going to go out and make braggadocious statement of I'm now one of the top three bookers of all time, or sick, some assembly of those words, who are you comparing yourselves to? I get off the top of my head name probably 25 promoters that were a lot more successful overall. Having a lot of money is that's a huge boon. My kid, if you gave him $1 billion, could probably do at least as well, if not better. So I think the fans, and I started hearing this weird thing from fans. Not weird. It's just like it was like a sudden blowback. The AEW launched, and even though the ratings were, sort of this, that, the other thing, like no real growth spurts, sustained spurts, you were getting positive feedback from the fans. We'd be at the merchandise tables. Hey, did you see the AEW show? Hey, I love Jericho. Whatever. That was the type of gist. About a year ago, maybe a little more. What was last summer? So a year and a half ago, I start hearing from fans. Started in Cleveland, the first time I remember hearing it. Couple people, a couple comes up. I'm guessing 30s, early mid 30s, great shape, both of them. And the guy said to me, "Hey, what do you think of AEW?" And I said, "What do you think of AEW?" I'm not going to step into that landmine. And he said, well, he looked at his wife almost like wife or girlfriend, almost like to get permission. And he said, "Well, we were bought in from the beginning," and he was really carefully choosing his words. And he said, "But after the last like 6 months, we're out. Like we're done." And that was here the first time. Okay, that's different. I hadn't heard that. Now I've heard that almost every night, every time I'm out of with an audience, and it seems to be trending. The argument's going to be, "Hey, we did a great house in England." You tell me if I'm wrong. I think any major American company coming to England, especially post pandemic, is probably going to do a pretty good house, right? Because it's something they don't get to see quite often. Mm-hmm. And again, not dispelling it, but I would think by now, in the amount of money that they've spent, they should, like Vince does when he comes over, instantly pack a building like that. In Pittsburgh, I've been to 2 shows of theirs in Pittsburgh, and neither time did they sell out the building. 11,000 seat venue, but a third of it taken up with stage and everything, and still not full. And I would think by the amount of money that's been spent by now, that building should not be big enough for them. ECW is a little bit different of a beast, a little more of an underground type of a promotion. But by that, by its end, we were able to go into those mid-sized buildings and pretty much pack them up. And we hadn't spent that kind of money. So, and then all the soap opera stuff that the fans are hearing about in the dressing room. That's that. I think now, like for the younger generation out there and for the younger fans out there, this is why there is a kayfabe, right? So that what we do behind those walls, you and I could have a knockdown, drag out fight. You knock my teeth out, I pull your eyeball out, but in front of the cameras, it's an angle. And you start airing that dirty laundry, it really, really looks bad. I mean, it looks bad. If you go out and air your family's dirty laundry, that looks bad. Everybody in the neighborhood's going, "Oh, what's James talking about that?" It's and so there's a whole lot of negative right there. What I think Tony needs, if there's going to be any chance for this company, for the senior con to capitalize on his investment, they're going to have to quickly retool and go in another direction. Clearly, what they're doing ain't working, as we see the audience doing this. The ratings on TV being this, the building's still failing to sell the buildings out. If they're going to do, they're going to have to retool quickly, and it's going to take somebody that's got that I don't want to say heavy hand, but somebody that's in control. When, again, not that I'm advocating the style, but when we were kids in Bill Watts' dressing room, you damn well knew who was in charge. And if you didn't like that, there's the door. And I'm not advocating that has to be it. I believe firmly in respecting everybody's input. But ultimately, if I'm working for James, and you come to me and say, okay, Shane, tonight I want you to put Moose over, and I want to do it in 3 minutes, and this is how I want it done. I can say, well, James, like, here's the counter to that. But if you say, okay, I appreciate that, but still we need to go this way. Well, since you're the guy paying the check and writing the check to me, ultimately it's going to come to a point, no matter how vociferously I fight for my position. Okay, I'm giving you what you want, because otherwise you can find somebody else to do it. And I think the AEW, they have a lot of talent there, and their production is incredible. But money will get you that. But like Dominic used to tell us, you can go to the ring with the best ring music. You can have the nicest tights and boots, the best ring jacket or robe. But when you step through those ropes and the music stops and you take that robe off, as Dominic would say, you damn well better know how to work. It's all about the product. Like for my son, in the group, I told him the other night, it's all about the performance. If you go up on stage and you're missing your notes and sounds awful, sooner or later, the club's going to say, no, we don't want you back. It really is about that. And I think that's the one area that AEW has been really suspect in, with that amount of talent, which is counterintuitive because they have so much talent. When you look at a roster on a piece of paper, you go, wow, I could do a lot with this. Maybe it's time for Tony to ponder the idea that maybe he's not the right guy to be running it. I'm a huge fan of pro football, right? Doesn't mean I can go out and coach a team or be a general manager for a team. There's really a lot that goes on and goes into this, and it sounds self-serving to those of us that have been in the business, but it's true. You look at someone like Dutch, right, Mantell, or Dusty Rhodes, these guys, Bill Watts, Paul Heyman. These are people that have spent a ton of time in and around the business, really their whole lives, their whole professional lives. And so when you go to Dutch and say, hey, we need to create a character that does something like this, and I want it to be a person about this big, and I want him to wear dress like that. And when Dutch comes back and says, well, I would change this to that, maybe tinker this and tinker that, and boom, do that, he probably has a pretty good idea what he's talking about. And you see, like in our business, even in WWE, with all due respect, I'm not qualified to write a sitcom or a drama for Hollywood. So I don't know how a writer for Hollywood is built to be a writer for professional wrestling. If you've never done it and you've never been in that ring, and you got a certain time frame that you've got to be in that ring and out, and you've got to present this stuff, and halfway through you get kicked really hard in the head or slammed on your head or something. You can't stop and go, oh, time out, can we start over? We got to get this right. You've got to drag it through to that end. And knowing intuitively from being in front of audiences, what works, what doesn't work. Will the crowd react to this or react to that? Steamboat was a master at it. Without that experience, it's, to me, really impossible. And it's no slight towards any kid writer from Hollywood. I don't care how many awards they've won in their dramas and their comedies. This is a different beast. It's not full entertainment. It's not full sport. Acting is a part of it. Being a great athlete, those are helpful parts, but it's some kind of gray area in between those two schools. And unless you understand those nuances, you're going to get the snidely whiplash heel, or the baby face that's this, which are both of them corny. We human beings have exponentially more layers to us than that, and the greatest characters to me in wrestling that were so successful had those multiple layers. And I think we're seeing right now in wrestling from Tony and from the WWE writers, this sort of least common denominator approach to wrestling. So, okay, you're a bad guy, so that means you would trip an old lady, or how about the guy that helps the old lady cross and steals her purse? It's there's nuances and layers to that kind of stuff. And I think that a lot of the criticism that's being leveled towards Tony right now is because, like I said earlier, the product in the ring. You've got an incredibly talented locker room. You've got a lot of agents back there that know exactly what to do and what not to do. And so if you're not able to put those pieces together, no harm, no foul. But we three plus, just going into the fourth year of this experiment. Okay, you got it launched. Maybe it's time to step back and hand that to somebody else that does have an idea. It doesn't mean you have to be exercised or exercised from the business, but somebody that knows what they're doing. And I think a lot of the criticism, some of it's well founded, some of it's going to be, as wrestling fans tend to do, like fans of any genre, are going to jump on and pile on. But bottom line is the company, for the amount of money that's been spent and the talent that's there, is vastly underperforming.
Yeah. I'll very, very much be brief with this, but a couple of the criticisms that Dutch has spoken about is, one, the roster's far too bloated. I mean, you're spending so much money on, 200 people when you need, for the amount of hours they put out, 80, let's say.
Yeah.
You could cut that down to, 2/3, between half and 2/3. And the other thing is, someone asked Dutch very recently on the other podcast, Storytime with Dutch Mantel, by the way, everybody.
Yeah.
What would you change about AEW? And he just said, sort of like the catch-all thing that he said for every promotion, it's like, the most important thing is the story.
Yeah.
Why do you care why these two people are fighting? And if you don't care and they're just two people, then why would you pay to see them? There's so much wrestling out there, you can see it all the time. And what was the other... Oh, I've forgotten the last thing I was going to say. But yeah, if I remember it, it's those two things. But yeah, more story... Cut costs, because it's almost like a wrestler charity drive at this point. You don't need to hire 200 people and give them all a yearly contract.
Yeah. It's almost like, you take your kid, when they're 4 or 5 years old into the store and you walk past the toy department, right? Doesn't matter if you bought them 26 toys earlier this week, they want a 27th toy. And so suddenly when somebody becomes available from WWE, there's this penchant, like, especially in light of what we were told in the buildup, it's not going to become a home for ex-WWE wrestlers. Well, can anybody name one that didn't go there?
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, nothing against those guys. It's just like you said, bloated. I need, if I'm running a football team, I need 11 players on the field. Probably a couple backups in case somebody gets hurt. So I need 22 plus, 30, 40. You can certainly run a team with that. You don't need 200 on the sideline. And, plus on television today, far less time than we had. What's it down to? 42, 44 minutes per hour.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you're getting into those numbers, you can only present so much. And if in any business, if you have even a drama, we'll say, or a sitcom, if James Romero's a star on this sitcom, and you're on this episode, but then we don't see you for 4 more episodes, you sort of get forgotten in those 3-4 weeks. And then they come back, we got to spend time to get you back, get the fans back into you. But if we can keep you floating through there, whether predominantly or just even a cameo, but you can't cameo 200 people in a 40-minute show weekly. So, it really does come down to, what do you need? What do you want to be? If you want to be, this type of a company, then you need those types of wrestlers. You want to be a sports entertainment company, you're going to need those kind of sports entertainers. But you can't sort of be this all things to all people and expect that that's going to somehow catch fire. It might catch a little fire with that semblance that you're playing to, and that other semblance over there, that other sector that might be interested in that. But then you got this huge chunk in the middle that ain't interested in either of that. So you can't be all things to all people. But if you put out a product that has a very specific direction, very defined characters, storylines like Dutch, you just said, that attract you, that draw you in, that's the kind of thing that will draw people to the table. And I would dare say, from the things that I've seen, and again, I don't watch on a steady basis, it's been a whole lot of what looks like independent spot monkey type, flash in the pan. Here's this person, you won't see him again for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. And when you look and you see, like an MJF, for the guy's size and everything else, on paper, this guy should not work in wrestling today. And yet he's going out there and he's caught fire. And a little newsflash to everybody in the dressing room watching that and wondering, all the fans out there, he's playing an old school heel. So for the kids that say, well, I can't teach us anything. Well, he learned something from those old school heels and he's applying it. And in some ways in revolutionary, new, updated ways, and in a lot of ways in the traditional manner, but it's working. And so I would agree with Dutch. For anybody out there, by the way, I would go catch Dutch's podcast, especially if you love wrestling and you want to know a lot about those inner tinkerings of wrestling, the stuff that we're sort of battering back and forth right here. Dutch is like one of those guys. He might drive you crazy with over detail, but boy, he's the guy that's certainly going to know what he's talking about when it comes to that department.